Unknown heroes of World War I and World War II. World War I, 1914 to 1918, and World War II, 1939 to 1945, were among the most devastating conflicts in human history. Millions of lives were lost, cities were destroyed, and nations were forever changed. History often remembers famous leaders, generals, and commanders, but behind every victory and sacrifice were countless ordinary men and women whose courage went unnoticed. These unknown heroes, soldiers, nurses, civilians, resistance fighters, and workers, played a crucial role in shaping the outcome of both wars. This article honors those unsung heroes whose bravery and sacrifice deserve remembrance. Unknown heroes of World War I. 1. The common soldier. World War I was largely fought in trenches under horrific conditions. Soldiers endured mud-filled trenches, constant shelling, poison gas attacks, disease and hunger. Most of these soldiers never became famous. They were farmers, students, teachers, and laborers who answered their country's call. Many died anonymously, buried in unmarked graves, remembered only as unknown soldiers. Their courage under relentless danger kept armies standing during years of stalemate. 2. Medical personnel and nurses. Doctors and nurses worked close to the front lines, treating wounded soldiers under fire. They performed surgeries without proper equipment, worked long hours with little rest, risked infection and death. Many nurses were women who volunteered despite social restrictions of the time. Their dedication saved thousands of lives, yet few were recognized beyond their hospitals. 3. Messengers and signal runners. Before modern communication, messages were carried by runners, pigeons, and signal operators. These individuals ran through enemy fire, delivered crucial battlefield orders, often died before completing their missions. Their speed and bravery often determined whether an attack succeeded or failed. Unknown heroes of World War II. Resistance fighters across Nazi-occupied Europe and Asia, ordinary civilians formed resistance movements. These fighters sabotaged railways and factories, smuggled information to Allied forces, hid refugees and prisoners of war. Many were captured, tortured, or executed, often without their names being recorded in history books. 2. Women in war. Women played vital roles in World War II, far beyond traditional expectations. Served as spies, code breakers, and pilots. Worked in factories producing weapons and supplies, acted as nurses and ambulance drivers. Despite their contributions, many returned to civilian life without recognition or reward. 3. Children and civilians. Millions of civilians, including children, became silent heroes. Children acted as messengers and lookouts. Families sheltered soldiers and refugees. Civilians endured bombings, rationing, and forced labor. Their resilience helped nations survive during years of terror and hardship. 4. Prisoners of war. Captured soldiers faced brutal treatment, forced labor, starvation, and disease, psychological and physical abuse. Many maintained dignity, helped fellow prisoners survive, and resisted enemy control despite impossible conditions. The unknown soldier, a symbol of all heroes. Many countries built memorials dedicated to the unknown soldier, a symbolic grave representing all unnamed warriors who died in war. These monuments remind us that heroism is not defined by fame, but by sacrifice, duty, and courage. Why remember the unknown heroes? They represent the true cost of war. Their sacrifices preserved freedom and peace. Remembering them honors humanity, not just victory. History is incomplete without acknowledging the millions whose names were lost, but whose actions shaped the world. Conclusion. The unknown heroes of World War I and World War II were ordinary people placed in extraordinary circumstances. They fought, healed, resisted, endured, and sacrificed without expecting recognition. Though history may not record their names, their courage lives on in the peace and freedom enjoyed today. They may be unknown, but they are never forgotten. Lesser-known groups who changed the course of history. 1. Colonial soldiers. During both World War I and World War II, millions of soldiers from colonies in Asia, Africa and the Middle East fought for European powers. They served on distant battlefields in unfamiliar climates. Indian, African, and Caribbean troops fought in Europe, Africa, and Asia. Many faced racial discrimination and unequal pay. Thousands died far from home, buried in foreign lands. Despite their enormous contribution, their sacrifices were often ignored in post-war histories. These soldiers helped defend freedoms they themselves were not allowed to fully enjoy. 2. Codebreakers and intelligence workers. Some of the most important heroes never carried weapons. Intelligence workers and codebreakers worked in secrecy to intercept enemy plans. They decoded enemy messages, provided crucial information for major battles, prevented surprise attacks, and saved millions of lives. Because their work was classified for decades, many died without ever receiving recognition for their role in winning the war. 3. Factory workers and war laborers. Behind the front lines, factories operated day and night. Workers produced weapons, vehicles, uniforms, medical supplies. Many workers were women, elderly people, or teenagers. They worked under dangerous conditions, faced air raids, and suffered exhaustion. Without their efforts, armies could not have survived. Acts of courage in everyday life won. Ordinary acts of bravery. Not all heroism happened on battlefields. Civilians showed courage by sharing food during shortages, protecting neighbors during bombings, refusing to cooperate with oppressive regimes. Small acts of kindness often meant risking one's life, yet many people chose humanity over fear. 2. Moral courage. Some unknown heroes showed bravery by standing against injustice, hiding persecuted families, forging documents to save lives, speaking out against cruelty. These individuals often faced execution if discovered, yet they acted because it was morally right. The psychological burden of the unknown heroes. Many survivors of both wars suffered in silence after returning home. Trauma and psychological wounds, physical disabilities, loss of family and livelihood. Mental health was poorly understood at the time, and many heroes received little support. Their struggles continued long after the wars ended. Lessons from the unknown heroes. The stories of unknown heroes teach us courage does not require recognition. Ordinary people can make extraordinary sacrifices. Peace is built on unseen suffering. Their lives remind us that history is shaped not only by leaders, but by millions of silent contributors. Final reflection. The unknown heroes of World War I and World War II carried the weight of war without glory or reward. Their sacrifices were often forgotten, but their impact remains. Remembering them is not just about honoring the past, it is about learning compassion, courage, and responsibility for the future. True heroism often lives in silence. Real-life stories of unknown heroes. The unknown soldier. In both World War I and World War II, countless soldiers died without identification. Many bodies could not be recognized due to the scale of destruction. To honor them, several nations created the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. Represents all unnamed soldiers who died in war. Symbolizes sacrifice without recognition. Serves as a reminder that every life lost mattered. These unknown soldiers stood for duty, often knowing they might never return home. 2. Unsung war. War medics worked in extreme danger, treated wounded soldiers under fire, carried injured men from battlefields, often gave up their own safety to save others. Many medics died without medals or public recognition. Their courage saved thousands of lives and reduced suffering during war. 3. Spies without names. Many spies and informants remain unknown even today. They collected vital enemy information, lived double lives, risked execution if discovered. Their work was secret, and most were never publicly acknowledged, even after the wars ended. Forgotten victims who became heroes. 1. Civilians in bombed cities. Cities across Europe and Asia were heavily bombed. Civilians became heroes by continuing daily life under constant threat, rebuilding homes after destruction, protecting children and the elderly. Survival itself became an act of bravery. 2. Refugees and displaced people. Millions were forced to flee their homes. walked long distances without food or shelter, faced violence and disease, lost families and identities. Their endurance and determination to survive turned them into silent heroes of history. Animals, the forgotten heroes. Animals also played important roles. Horses carried supplies and soldiers. Dogs delivered messages and detected mines. Pigeons carried crucial communications. Many animals died in service, yet their contributions are rarely remembered. Why their stories were forgotten? Many unknown heroes were forgotten because records were destroyed in war. Their actions were secret, society focused on famous leaders. However, modern historians are now uncovering these hidden stories. Continuing the legacy today, we honor unknown heroes by visiting war memorials, teaching history with empathy, promoting peace and understanding. Their legacy teaches us that courage exists everywhere, even in the most ordinary lives. Honoring the legacy of unknown heroes, memorials and remembrance. After the wars ended, nations around the world built memorials to honor those whose names were never known. These memorials stand as symbols of sacrifice and unity, remind future generations of the cost of war, represent millions who never returned home. Annual remembrance days, moments of silence, and ceremonies help keep their memory alive. The role of education and history education plays a vital role in honoring unknown heroes. By learning about ordinary people's sacrifices, students understand that war affects everyone, not just soldiers. Courage is often quiet and unnoticed. Peace should never be taken for granted. History becomes more meaningful when it includes the voices of the forgotten. Moral responsibility of future generations. The unknown heroes of World War I and World War II gave everything they had, often their lives without expecting recognition. Future generations carry the responsibility to preserve peace, reject hatred and violence, respect human dignity. Remembering their sacrifice is a step toward building a more just world. Conclusion. The unknown heroes of World War I and World War II were not famous generals or political leaders. They were ordinary people, soldiers, nurses, workers, civilians, children, and even animals, who showed extraordinary courage during humanity's darkest hours. Their names may be lost to history, but their sacrifices shaped the modern world. True heroism lies not in recognition, but in service, compassion, and courage. Regional contributions often overlooked one. Asia, millions of Asians participated in both wars, yet their stories remain largely untold. World War I. Soldiers from India, China, and Southeast Asia worked as laborers and frontline troops. World War II. Asian civilians endured brutal occupations, forced labor, and mass starvation. Many Asian resistance members secretly supported Allied forces by supplying intelligence, shelter, and medical aid. Entire villages were destroyed for helping soldiers, yet these sacrifices were rarely recorded. 2. Africa. African soldiers and civilians played a critical role in both wars, served as infantry, porters, and scouts, endured harsh climates in minimal equipment. Often denied pensions and honors after the war, African civilians also suffered from forced recruitment and economic exploitation. Their endurance and loyalty significantly supported wartime logistics. 3. Eastern Europe. Eastern Europe witnessed some of the most brutal fighting of World War II. Civilians faced mass executions and forced displacement. Underground resistance movements operated in secrecy. Many families lost entire generations. Acts of bravery included hiding persecuted groups, smuggling food, and spreading forbidden information, often punishable by death. Psychological and emotional heroism. Heroism is not only physical bravery, it is also mental endurance. 1. Living with fear, unknown heroes lived under constant threat. Bombings at night, sudden arrests, food shortages, continuing daily life under these conditions required immense courage. 2. Silent suffering after the war. Many survivors returned home carrying invisible wounds. Trauma, now known as PTSD, guilt over lost comrades, difficulty adjusting to normal life. Mental health support was nearly non-existent, forcing many heroes to suffer in silence. Women as invisible pillars of war. While men often fought on the front lines, women carried the war on their shoulders at home and behind enemy lines. Roles played by women ran farms, factories, and households, served as nurses, pilots, and intelligence agents, protected children and the elderly. Many women lost husbands, sons, and brothers, but continued working to keep societies functioning. Children, the youngest unknown heroes. Children were among the most tragic victims and heroes of war. Acted as messengers and helpers, worked in factories and fields, protected younger siblings. Many lost their education in childhood, growing up too soon in a world of violence. Ethical courage, choosing humanity over fear. Some of the greatest heroism involved moral choices rather than weapons, refusing to obey cruel orders, helping strangers despite personal risk, standing up against injustice. These individuals often had no military rank or authority, only conscience and courage. Why history failed to record them. Several factors contributed to their invisibility: destruction of documents, language and racial barriers, focus on political leaders and battles. As a result, millions of acts of bravery remain undocumented. Modern efforts to rediscover unknown heroes. Today, historians and researchers are working to recover lost records, document oral histories, restore dignity to forgotten communities. Museums, documentaries, and memorial projects now aim to tell these hidden stories. Lessons for the modern world. The unknown heroes of World War I and II teach us that courage does not require recognition. Ordinary people shape history. Peace is fragile and must be protected. Their lives remind us that war is not just about victory or defeat. It is about human endurance. Ultimate conclusion. The unknown heroes of World War I and World War II were the foundation upon which survival, resistance, and eventual peace were built. Their strength lay not in fame, but in sacrifice. Their legacy lives not in history books alone, but in the freedoms and values of the modern world. They are unknown by name, but eternal in impact. Case studies of collective unknown heroism. Trench communities of World War I. In World War I, soldiers did not fight alone. They survived as communities, shared food, letters, and hope, protected wounded comrades under fire, maintained morale in unbearable conditions. Many soldiers performed heroic acts daily, repairing trenches, rescuing the injured, or standing guard for hours, without medals or records. These collective efforts kept entire units alive. 2. Village resistance in World War II. Across occupied Europe and Asia, entire villages became centers of resistance. Farmers hid weapons and food, families sheltered fugitives, communities passed secret messages. When discovered, whole villages were punished, burned, or destroyed. These communities acted together, knowing the risks, yet choosing resistance over submission. Spiritual and cultural strength as heroism. Faith and hope. Many unknown heroes relied on spiritual strength to survive. Prayer during bombings, songs and poetry in camps. Shared beliefs that gave meaning to suffering. Cultural traditions helped people maintain identity and dignity, even in dehumanizing conditions. Art, music, and writing in war. Art became a form of resistance. Prisoners wrote diaries secretly. Civilians painted and composed music. Soldiers recorded their experiences in letters. These creative expressions preserved truth when official records failed. Healthcare beyond the battlefield. Civilian healers. Not all medical heroes wore uniforms. Local healers treated wounded civilians. Volunteers cared for refugees. Teachers turned schools into shelters. Often lacking supplies, they improvised treatments and risked punishment for helping enemies or rebels. Environmental and logistical sacrifice. Invisible labor, behind every battle were massive logistical efforts. Porters carried supplies through jungles and mountains. Railway workers repaired bombed tracks. Ship crews transported food and medicine. Many of these workers died from exhaustion, disease, or attacks, yet history rarely remembers them. Justice delayed. Recognition after decades. In many cases, recognition came too late. Veterans received honors decades later. War crimes against civilians were acknowledged long after the event's families learned the truth about lost relatives years later. This delayed justice shows how long it takes for history to recognize the forgotten. Ethics of remembering war. Why memory matters. Remembering unknown heroes is a moral duty. It prevents the glorification of violence. It honors human dignity. It teaches empathy. History without the voices of ordinary people is incomplete. Danger of forgetting. Forgetting the unknown heroes risks repeating past mistakes, ignoring civilian suffering, reducing war to statistics. True remembrance focuses on human stories, not just victories. The role of modern society. Today's world has a responsibility to protect historical truth, support veterans and survivors, promote peace and dialogue. Museums, education systems, and memorial days must continue to include the stories of the forgotten. Expanded final reflection. The unknown heroes of World War I and World War II were not exceptions. They were the majority. Their courage lived in endurance, kindness, resistance, and survival. Though their names may never appear in textbooks, their actions shaped the moral foundation of the modern world. Returning home to silence. For many unknown heroes, survival did not mean peace. When World War I and World War II ended, millions returned home to lives forever changed. Soldiers came back physically wounded or disabled. Many found their homes destroyed or families lost. Jobs were scarce and economies were broken. Unlike famous war leaders, ordinary veterans received little recognition. Many struggled to rebuild their lives without support or understanding. Invisible wounds. Mental and emotional trauma. One of the greatest burdens carried by unknown heroes was psychological trauma, post-war trauma. What we now call post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, was poorly understood at the time. Nightmares and flashbacks, anxiety and depression, difficulty reconnecting with family. Many were labeled weak or unstable rather than treated with care. Their suffering remained hidden for decades. Families of unknown heroes. The families of the unknown heroes also paid a heavy price. Widows raised children alone. Parents waited years for news of missing sons. Children grew up without knowing their fathers or mothers. In many cases, families never received confirmation of death, only silence. Their grief had no closure. Economic sacrifice and poverty. Many unknown heroes returned to poverty. War veterans often lacked education or skills. Injured soldiers were unable to work. Civilians who supported resistance movements lost property and livelihoods. Despite their sacrifices, many lived and died in hardship.